Welcome to Trips Awakening. You subscribe to the truth. Yesterday I uploaded a video and it got deleted. My Samsung Edge 7 got a mind of its own. So I basically had to do it all over again. I want to talk about preachers that's called to preach. My opinion, I think it's a bunch of mess. There's no such thing. Anybody can get licensed to preach. You got these crooked ministers and preachers out here, and it's a lot of them, they're crooks, especially, TD Snakes and, Creflo Holla, I got $1, and the Pope and them. They're using people, they're basically doing hypnotic spells, on you church members, but y'all don't ever pay attention. Anytime you see some of these preachers speaking in tongues, they're speaking Latin, and some of y'all don't know that. They'll tell y'all to come up to the line and they'll touch y'all's head and touch y'all's heart. Y'all shouldn't let them do that because basically they're casting spells. So, y'all have to really be careful. And, a lot of y'all don't know what certain things mean. Some of these ministers and preachers, they actually do some scandalous stuff. And, I know this for a fact. Some of y'all families out there, because I had it happen to me, they treat their preacher and the church people better than they'll do their own family. And the Bible is nothing but, lies. And like I said, some of y'all don't take time to do research and stuff like that. And there ain't no such thing as God and Jesus and these preachers out here. They basically, say they called to preach. They say, oh, God woke me up this morning to come and preach. That's bullshit, Like they seen a big ass light come in the room and they said, like God actually talked to them and say, and then you got preachers saying that God came in my room to talk to me. And God told me that I was called to preach. Like God said, yes, Father. Like God said, yes, Son. I'm God. It's time for you to preach. That's a bunch of shit, and that's comedy to me. And a lot of y'all go for it, Some of these ministers and preachers, when y'all go up to the pulpit, I'm telling y'all, they're using hypnotic spells, and then they have some stranger come into the church and act like they're having problems. And they control other people's frequency because y'all go for it, y'all start screaming and shouting and stuff like that, and then they always want y'all to come up to the pulpit, and y'all basically worship a man. Like I said, y'all treat your pastor, pimping ass pastor and preacher better than you would do your own family. And these fake ass conscious brothers will do a video on that because they bullshit. They bullshit too. And these Muslims, these religious groups, they divide y'all and have y'all confused and mixed up. That's the reason why these secret society groups put this stuff together, like these hate crime groups like the Black Panther and who else? The Black Panthers and the KKK, all of them, they put all of that to divide different races. So, I just want to put that out there. And as a lot of y'all, get on your hands and knees if some of these preachers tell y'all to do anything, y'all would do anything they say. Some members, they would go all out. They'd be like, oh, you can't talk bad about the pastor and you can't crush the preacher and stuff. Y'all need to question them. If y'all gonna worship this fake bullshit person, and I'm gonna be the reason why they lose members. Me. Because my video is gonna get out there, already manifest, and people like Creflo Holla, I have $1, and y'all crooked 501c3 corporation preachers already put out in the universe that these members are going to start thinking on their own. They're going to start thinking. And there ain't nothing y'all can do about it. Y'all feed their families. and keep putting money in their pockets. They're no better than you. So y'all need to start worshiping them. And so I bet y'all some of y'all holidays is coming around. I bet y'all will spend a lot of money on these preachers and don't do nothing for your family. Just because some people family, just because they're blood related, doesn't mean they actually family. Just because they're blood related, because you got some skins as family members, and I know that for a fact. Always gossiping and being on some negative stuff, and always trying to hate on your success. And this negative, they're mad because they can't, speak their mind. You got some family members, they scared to speak their mind, and they sneak and talk about other family members behind their back. And and they supposed to be so-called Christian. That's the reason why I don't like these Christians out here. They're no better than these Muslims, and these Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, all these religious groups. But I can't stand the Christians at all. I dislike them because they always gossiping. For example, they'll say, Sister such and such got a tight skirt on, or did you see such and such brother's suit? It was all tight and he had high waters on. I'm just using this for example. Or they'd be like, oh, you see such and such hairline, or she coming to church and she was in the club shaking her ass and stuff. And majority of these preachers and ministers, their kids is messed up. That's the reason why they do scandalous stuff. It backfires on them and stuff. And like a lot of, some of these preachers got females, they got daughters, and their daughters be knocked up with 2 different baby daddies, or more. That be on that trifling stuff, and these ministers and preachers, they're no better than y'all, and y'all need to start worshiping. Ain't no such thing as a man called to preach. And y'all need to stop really going for that stuff. Like straight up. And a lot of y'all be putting on the act, and they got ATMs in churches, and some of them, like I said in my previous videos, they got like ATM machines, and if you don't, if you got some income coming in, and if you don't make enough, they won't accept you. They got applications. What kind of mess is that? And it's basically what makes me laugh at the whole thing when they say, well, God got my back, God will protect me, and if God protected you, which the universe created us, and I'm going to do a video on that, if this man-made word, God protect you, and this Jesus protect you, then how come you need security? Can you answer that? I'll tell you why. Because you need security to protect your government money. You and the government is making money. While other people struggling with their 9 to 5 to support y'all's bullshit church. There ain't nothing but some crooked-ass 501c3 corporation preachers. Y'all need to research some of this stuff that I'm talking about. That some of y'all, wear crosses. You put crosses around your neck, and it's basically the Roman sword. And some of y'all don't know that. That, and there's so much stuff here that y'all don't know. And I put this stuff out there because I want y'all to think for yourself and stop worshiping, different things and let different entities come in your life. These 501c3 corporation preachers, they won't tell y'all the truth, but I will. I'll put that stuff out there. They wouldn't want me to go up. They wouldn't want me to go up into their church, because if I go up to their church, I will expose them, and their members will leave because they would feel where I'm coming from. Because I got that great energy and that knowledge. They would, they would try to get me. They would care. I wouldn't go to no church anyway, because there ain't nothing but. To me, it's a place where it's basically like a witchcraft crap. Which you got your good witches and you got your bad witches. So I ain't even gonna put them in the same category. X that out. X that comment out. That statement that I just made. So I just want y'all to just start thinking for yourself. Because these ministers and preachers out here, they're taking your soul and energy. We're energy, and they're controlling y'all's frequency as well too. And y'all don't see that. Some of these preachers, if they came to y'all's house, they tell y'all, some of you members, they'd be like, well, God told me to tell you to get on your knees. And I don't want to get graphic, but y'all know the rest. Some of y'all would do it. If the pastor said, well, God told me to tell you to bend over, y'all would do it. Y'all would believe him. And it's like y'all would fight over these preachers, and y'all would actually, y'all get mad if somebody talk about Jesus and stuff. And y'all don't have no proof that these fake characters exist. Y'all just going by what you was taught and programmed. And they full of it on so many different levels. You got some pimping ass preachers that sleep with either a man or a female, children, or animals, and be up there at the pulpit or in the front, preaching scriptures, bullshit words out the Bible, and they basically, the court system and all of them connected, they all got the same robe, they all use the same thing. It's nothing but laws. Y'all going by laws. Y'all going by laws and rules. The judge got a robe, the preacher got a robe, and there's so much stuff out there that I put out there, y'all need to really pay attention, because the whole world is gonna know who I am. They're gonna know who I am, and a lot of people seeing my video is really helping them, because people starting to think and starting to open up their eyes, and they think, I can tell you what preachers would say. They'd be like, oh, he got the devil in him, he got Satan in him. If y'all start questioning, saying, well, I watched, say for example, somebody said, hey, I watched, Tripp's video, and he was talking about 501c3 corporation, and y'all be speaking Latin and all of that stuff, because y'all can just listen to him, and if y'all study Latin, y'all would know what they're talking about, and they basically, hold on for a second, Joe. They're speaking Latin. It's nothing but Greeks and Romans that made up all of this crap, and the Arabs. They basically did that, and the Shriners. The Shriners basically is created by the Europeans and the Arabs. That's their religion, and y'all don't take time to look that up. And they the biggest murderers. Christians and Muslims. They did it in the name of Jesus, which the character doesn't exist. Y'all don't never pay attention to stuff. Y'all just go by what other people say. And I know a lot of y'all I'm gonna get some Christians be on some hating ass shit, which I don't care. Excuse me, y'all. I'm out here on my patio doing this video. It's raining and stuff, so I know y'all might have heard thunder and lightning, but I thought it feels so good outside, But anyway, let me get back to the video. But look, I'm giving y'all something to think about. And these fake ass conscious brothers, I'm telling y'all need to not pay attention to them. And I'm gonna do a video on that soon. That's coming. But yeah, y'all can't believe nothing they be saying. They always saying the same old crap. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? And then saying, God told me to tell y'all this, and y'all believe that crap, And then they've been saying the same story for years, and y'all going for that mess. It's nothing but stories. Y'all need to start making your own stories up and, doing your thing and, get your legacy going on. Make his story, her story. Y'all start doing your own thing. Stop, praise yourself, praise your loved ones. When I mean by loved ones, like I said, they don't have to be family, or they could, it could be like somebody that's cool, or it could be your lady, or one of your close family members. That's what I mean by love, your loved ones. That's how you do that. Worship yourself and worship your loved ones. Don't worship this man-made bullshit or other scriptures and words and stuff that y'all don't have a clue about. Y'all was taught and programmed, just like they do in school with the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and this bullshit history, and they're programming y'all, you know, and they doing so much things out there. And I just want y'all to think for yourself, straight up. You know, to all my subscribers, my true subscribers, my spiritual family, and the new subscribers that's aware, shout out to y'all. You know, like I said, I got some negative people subscribed to my channel, which they got a lot of things coming towards them, and and when I mean by that, it's not good. I already seen what's gonna happen to you negative people that made comments. So I already seen what's gonna happen to y'all, and y'all gonna be begging for it to stop. You know, like I said, y'all don't know what I'm connected with, straight up. But you know, I got them, you know, I got course guy agents, you know, checking out my channel and stuff. And you know, like I said, I appreciate my spiritual family that's aware and know these things. And another thing before I wrap this up, you know, this religion divided all races, you know, and got y'all thinking a certain way. Like, for example, the Bible, it lies so much. It says Jesus had woolly hair, brown skin, but they got pictures of different paintings of a Caucasian dude, you know, and that was just to divide y'all. And some of y'all didn't think and see that, you know, like you got a lot of melanated people saying, oh, well, Jesus is black. And then you got the Caucasians saying, oh, no, Jesus is white. You know, they did that shit on purpose. I just want to put that out there to give y'all something to think about. They did that on purpose, all right? So, what was I going to say? You know, that it ain't no such thing as Jesus. That's just the character. Like, you know, some of these, like, you know, when they talk about Kemet and all of that, they talk about Osiris and different people. And I'm going to do a video on that as well, too. You know, it's just basically, you know, they're going by characters. You know, like I said, our ancestors were energy. You know, we're energy. And we're the universe. You know, we didn't write books. You know, we didn't do none of that crap. And we didn't speak this English. We had we communicate with different sounds and stuff. You know, you don't see, you know, a monkey or gorilla reading a book. You know, they do things by nature. They connect to the universe. That's the reason why I say certain animals that's not cloned is on a higher frequency than we are. You know, because y'all go by rules and books. That's programming. What? Somebody say something.